All right, everybody. Excuse me, as most of you know, I don't have a voice, but I wanted to get this out. Now, unfortunately, this is way later than I wanted to get it out. It's not going to be as thorough and as deep as I wanted it to be, but it's a process. So I wanted to give you guys something to go off of after this challenge, just to kind of maintain. You can use this for the maintenance program. This will actually be one of the foundations for our new challenge that we'll have in January, which I am pumped about. After doing 3 full challenges this past year, I really think we've got a good idea of what works, what doesn't, what we can add to it to make it additional for those who've done challenges before, just to make it top notch, next level. So I'm really super excited about that. So stay posted when we'll have that new January challenge with this. But again, I'll do a more thorough job of covering these. But this is going to be the 15 foods that I think are essential. They are quality, they are nutrient dense, and they are easily digestible, which are my 2 to 3 things that I focus in on. Now, again, my background, I've been in the fitness industry professionally for about 10 years, but I've been engaged in it for, I'm 34, probably past 22 years. Ever since I was about 12 or so is when I really started diving into exercise. I started diving into nutrition, and I actually like nutrition more than all of it. I just, again, have just gotten into the fitness industry as I was getting my education, and it has taken off. But this is what I'm truly, truly passionate about. I just want to help people get as healthy as possible, feel good, and nutrition is obviously, as you guys know, a huge factor of that. So again, these aren't the only foods. It doesn't mean there's not other health foods out there, but these are what I consider an absolute staple. Now, I want you guys to know that I have done this challenge, and actually 100% of my calories have come from this list. Again, I'm very simple and basic and keep things easy. My perfect world, what I do is I think if you eat 80% of your calories from this list, it's very difficult to be overweight. So that's why I'm going through it. Not saying that you can't be successful doing any other types of foods. There are healthier foods, or there are healthy foods out there that are not on this list. So don't say, Brandon, what about this or that? This is just, I want to keep it simple. And through my years of nutrition, again, through my years of education, I actually do kind of opposite and completely different of what my education has taught, because the studies they use have been manipulated. We're made and I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. We're conditioned to be fat and sick. And the reason why is when we're fat and sick, we're worth a lot of money to the medical field, to the pharmaceutical companies. The healthier we are, the less money we are worth to them. So I think the entire system is broken. I also think marketers come in and absolutely screw up everything to try to make a dollar. So they market the stuff that shows that, hey, this is healthy, or these certain things are in it when there's a bunch of other junk in it that mess us up. I think we have all trashed our metabolisms through processed foods. The foods aren't as nutrient dense as they used to be due to certain farming techniques, and all this stuff goes into it. So I just want you to have the freedom to pick and choose what you want. I want you guys to know that I've done vegetarian diet. All this, I've done this myself. I've done vegetarian. I've done paleo. I've done keto. Um, I've done low carb, Atkins. What else have I done? I've done a bunch. I'm the guinea pig first. I see what I feel good on, what works, what cleans up a blood work, and then I start administering some of it to clients, and then I see how they do, and then I tweak stuff. So this list of 15 foods or so that I have could change next week. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to progress, and I'm always trying to grow. But over my 20 years of working with nutrition and athletes and general population and morbidly obese people, I have found that these foods have the least inflammation, have the highest nutrients, and they're easiest to digest. And then I'm going to debunk a handful of healthy foods that I think are absolutely terrible for you. Again, I am not going to go into the depth that I want to. It's going to be very difficult for me. I'm going to try to keep this video relatively short. I'll come up with a PDF eventually to go with this, but I'm going to run through it quick. I'm not going to break down all the science. I'm not going to break down all the stories that I have with these foods and stuff like that. I'm just going to be fairly quick and go through it. Now, these aren't in These are not in any particular order of like healthiest to not healthiest. These are again just a collaboration of these foods. So I'll start it off. If that wasn't a long-winded explanation of why I'm doing this, the only food that is in order is this first food. I think this first food is the most nutrient dense food on the planet. I think I know it is the healthiest food on the planet. It's been demonized by the industry, by the medical fields. But if there was one food that I had to pick to survive off of that I think is an absolute superfood, it is beef. I think beef is the most nutrient dense, protein rich, quality fat rich food. You could actually eat beef by itself, survive, and not only survive, but you can thrive. You can meet a lot of your vitamin, nutrient, and mineral deficiencies with just beef alone. And I know that blows people's minds because they've been told, oh, you'll have heart attacks. Red meat's terrible for you. And again, I'm not going to get a ton into the science. My next video, I will. But beef is priority in all of my meal plans and all of my nutrition. I think it is the healthiest food. And just to be quick with it, because I can't just leave it alone there, because I know you got questions. Beef has been demonized, and the reason why, and again, I think there's a big difference between grass-fed beef and traditional beef. Grass-fed beef has been fed a proper diet. Their omega-3s, which is a healthy fat, is a lot higher, and their omega-6s are a lot lower. Omega-6 is a high inflammation fat that we want to avoid mostly. A little bit of it is okay, but we don't want a ton of it. Traditional grain-fed beef has higher omega-6 ratio compared to omega-3. I still think it's worth eating. I still think it's a health food, but it's not as healthy as grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And again, that's a whole different story, but just something to think about. Again, my 6 week I've been doing this challenge. I want to say that I have probably ate anywhere between 50 to 60 burgers, grass-fed, grass-finished beef burgers. I have one at least every day. Sometimes it's twice a day. It's simple, it's easy, and again, I think it's the healthiest. I feel the best when I'm on it. But there's a study that came out in like the 50s and the late 50s, early 60s, where it showed a vegetarian diet compared to somebody who ate red meat, and the vegetarian diet did much better than the individuals who ate the red meat. So therefore, off that one simple study, the medical field took it and ran with it and didn't do any additional research. And believe it or not, they're still using that study today. Here's why I think that study is absolutely skewed and 100% wrong. Somebody who is taking the initiative to be a vegetarian or a vegan is what I call health conscious. They're obviously the majority. Some do it for animal rights and stuff like that. But the majority of individuals trying to go vegan are being health conscious. They're trying to make that move because they're interested in their overall health and they want to feel better. So they are generally a healthier population compared to somebody with an Western American standard diet, which is absolute trash. So then they took this study of these individuals who ate servings of beef every day compared to vegetarians. What people don't realize, the majority of people who ate beef in the 1950s and 60s were people who weren't as health conscious. They didn't exercise nearly as much as the vegetarians did. They also they weren't eating a steak with broccoli. They were sitting there eating cheeseburgers and French fries and washing it down with a Coca-Cola. And there's a correlation with the individuals who ate like that and did not exercise also heavily smoked. Most vegetarians do not smoke. So there's, again, this is just a clip of why I think beef has been demonized. But if that doesn't make sense to you, obviously the people who ate beef in the study were going to be much less healthy than the vegetarians. Now, I'm not for a vegetarian or vegan diet. I actually think it's fairly unhealthy. But a vegan or vegetarian diet is much healthier than the standard American diet. But I think we need to get beef back into our diet, and this is the number one superfood. And I'm not going to get into the vitamins and the minerals and the proteins and the fats that come along with it. But again, that's my take on beef. Okay. Second, and again, none of these are in order besides beef. The rest of these I just kind of have in categories of like proteins, fats, fruits, and vegetables. Okay. So then On the top or on that list as well, I have fish, preferably sardines and wild caught salmon. I think are great. Again, omega 3s, they have good quality fats in them, which we have to have for our metabolism, our cholesterol, our brain function. We cannot go on a low fat diet. It's absolutely terrible for you. You see bodybuilders do it all the time to get to a certain, body fat percentage to perform on stage. And if you talk to any of those guys who compete, when they drop out their fat and just have protein and carbohydrates to keep their muscle full and to look incredibly lean, they feel absolutely terrible. Their blood work is absolutely terrible. So then again, we don't want to highlight a bodybuilder's diet because that's a sport. It's a respectable sport. It's an incredibly difficult sport, but that's not overall health. My focus is overall health. Are your blood sugars in check? Are your cholesterols in check? Blood pressure, good. Triglycerides, like all these are factors of being a healthy individual. And if we get those factors in check, we're going to stay relatively lean. So again, fish is great, preferably sardines, and wild caught salmon are the ones that I keep as a staple in my diet. I'll have fish occasionally as long as we're not breading it or deep frying it. It is great. But those are two of the proteins or the fish that I would highly recommend that are quick, simple, and again, very nutrient dense. Then my next one. So I'm on number 3 here. Number 3 is eggs. I think eggs, now there is a certain amount of the population who is very sensitive to eggs. Now, same with beef. I believe where you get the egg from makes a huge difference. A pasture raised egg is much different than a traditional fed egg. They look different. The colors are different. And the omega 3 ratio is different. But again, an overall egg is a perfect protein and fat source. Now, again, there is cholesterol, but we have good cholesterol in the body and we have bad cholesterol in the body. And now I'm not going to get down the rabbit hole of what I think cholesterol is and how that has been manipulated as well. But cholesterol you have to have for brain function. What people don't realize in an egg, which I think is super cool, is like, say an egg is to turn into a chicken, okay? A lot of people think the egg yolk is like the body and the body forms and stuff like that. Well, people don't realize the whites is the actual chicken and the egg yolk is all the nutrients that it needs to support a healthy, thriving chicken. It's predominantly fat because that's what it takes to sit there and form the brain, which I found super cool. So it's an actually very good healthy food. It's a quality fat. No, we don't need to eat 10 of them throughout the day, but they can be a staple in your diet. Now, again, without going long-winded with it, if you don't think I'm not long-winded already, I haven't even started. But with that, if you were to get a cholesterol test and you're not truly fasted, if you have any cholesterol in your system from a piece of beef or an egg, it's going to show you actually have elevated cholesterol. So one, if you're getting your blood work done, make sure you have been fasted a minimum of 24 hours, preferably 36 to 48 for a true cholesterol reading, which nobody ever does. And that's why our cholesterol levels are completely skewed and your cholesterol is actually better than you think, and you don't need to be on cholesterol medications for it. Again, that's the majority. I'm not a doctor. Don't do what I say. Figure it out for yourself, but that's just my personal opinion. So that's eggs. All right. Next on my list is an avocado. An avocado is a great fat. It's a decent amount of fiber. It's got a ton of potassium in it. People think, oh, I need to get my potassium in. I need to get bananas. Yes, bananas have some potassium, but they come with a decent amount of sugar. Not that it's bad, not that we're not getting vitamins and minerals. I hate it when people demonize a banana because it's got some sugar in it. It's much better than a Snickers bar. But avocados have a good amount of potassium. They're a good satiating food. They go with a ton of stuff. You can add them as a side. It's technically a fruit, which I'm more for fruit than I am vegetables because I think they're easier to digest. So it's a good quality, fairly low carbohydrate, nutrient-rich food. So avocados are fantastic. I tell people all the time, so is guacamole, like those holy guacamoles you can get that don't go brown, which is awesome, or a great go-to for an avocado source. It's the same thing. After my avocado, I've got asparagus. I think asparagus is a great vegetable, and I was actually listening to a podcast, and these guys brought up a really good point. Asparagus is actually a slight diuretic. It's not going to dehydrate you because you eat a bunch of it, but I found really interesting is this guy put a lot of his clients and females, when they go through their menstrual cycle, which you retain a lot of water when you do that. The majority of you should know you bloat up. It's just part of the process. By putting 2 servings of asparagus in somebody's diet while they go through that menstrual cycle, it actually kept their bloating down significantly. Not that they didn't have any bloating, but it actually kept it down, and it actually keeps you a little bit leaner looking because you're not as bloated up with it. So I thought that was really interesting. But asparagus is a good quality vegetable. Don't eat any vegetables raw. I'm against raw vegetables because what people don't realize, a lot of raw vegetables have defense chemicals in them because they do not want to be eaten. You'll hear people on the carnivore diet, which I've done carnivore myself, talk about how bad vegetables are for you, and they are to an aspect, but if they've been cooked properly, then your body can break them down and digest them easily. So that's why I always say cook your vegetables. I'm not anti-vegetable, but the ones you do eat, you need to thoroughly cook. I'm not a big fan of salad because of that, but I'll explain that later in another deal. So asparagus was next. Zucchini is next on my list. The reason why, zucchini is actually a fruit as well. People don't realize it. It's called a non-sweet fruit. Zucchini is super easy. We do zoodles all the time. We got a little $10 thing from Amazon that you swirl around and you take that zucchini, you turn it into a bunch of noodles. We'll put a marinara sauce over the top of it. It cooks up easy. You can sear it in the pan. Whatever seasoning you put on it takes to a good flavor of it. It soaks it up really well. Fairly low carbohydrate. Good green quality. It's a fruit, but people are going to categorize it as a vegetable, and it's a nice additional filler or side on top of your quality protein. So again, zucchini is super easy to digest. That goes along with the avocado. All these guys I want to be really easy to digest because your gut health is crucial to your overall health. And all these foods should help your gut health, not hurt it. And there's a lot of healthy foods that do that, and I'll get into that. After that, I go into blueberries. Blueberries are fantastic. They have a crazy amount of antioxidants in them. They're fairly low in carbohydrate. They have a good amount of quality fiber in them. They're very satiating, and you can have a decent amount of them for not a ton of carbohydrates because we do have to be cautious of the carbohydrates. I don't want people to fear carbohydrates, but we need to respect them because that's where we really fall into trouble is having too many additional carbohydrates in the diet. It's not fat; it's the carbohydrates typically. So blueberries are great go-to. You don't need some big elaborate berry like goji berries or all those other things, which actually are just cousins of blueberries. Blueberries is the true foundation of all of it. You don't need to get some exotic berry to be healthy. Blueberries are legit. All the other berries are great. I'll put them on an honorable mention list, but blueberries are quick, simple, and easy. Next on the list, I'll get into a little bit of fat here. Back to kind of my beef issue. Butter is phenomenal. Grass-fed butter. You see the name brand Kerrygold all the time. That is a good quality grass-fed butter. Like I said, there's a big difference between your omega-3s between a regular butter and a grass-fed butter. So if you can get that grass-fed, it's a good healthy fat. Traditional butter, I would actually stay away from. But you don't want to go to a margarine which is loaded with vegetable oils and canola oils, which wreak havoc on your system. They're not healthy. You want to stay away from those seed oils and those vegetable oils because they're awful for you. Butter and ghee, which is clarified butter, just means the milk. There's a couple milk proteins. That's why it looks a little bit creamy, and ghee looks more like a clear liquid. Ghee is heated up. Those milk proteins have been taken out and just more clarified butter. Either one of those are great. I only cook and use ghee and butter for my cooking oils. I don't use Pam. I don't use canola oil. I will occasionally, that's my next one on the list, use extra virgin olive oil, which is a good, healthy additional fat. Comes from olives. If you want a pure source, you don't want light. Get away from light oils. Yes, it looks like it's less from a caloric standpoint, but they strip all the nutrients out from it, and they actually cut it with other oils to make it less calorically dense. But then it's going to be less nutrient dense. So you're better off just using a little less if you're concerned about the calories of the extra virgin olive oil than getting the light. It's been stripped, it's been heated up and cooled down. You just want a good, clean, extra virgin olive oil. Again, is a good quality fat. Outside of the fats, we'll get a little bit more into the carbohydrates now. A sweet potato. A sweet potato is great. It's got the beta carotene in it. Mix that up. Beta carotene in it, which is that orange you get out of it, which is great for your body. It has a good amount of quality carbohydrates in it. It doesn't spike your insulin. crazy or your blood sugar is crazy, it will spike it because it is a carbohydrate, but it's not a drastic spike. It's more of a slow spike, and that's why you don't have a big crash off of it. Potatoes are okay, but they're higher on the glycemic index and they don't have as many nutrients in them. A sweet potato has much more nutrients, so that's why I picked that over a potato. Again, put a potato in honorable mention, but sweet potato is the way to go. Now, this next one I have is going to surprise a lot of people. White rice. White rice, not brown rice, white rice. White rice is not very nutrient dense though, but it is an additional good side filler for your carbohydrates, and it's very good on your digestive system, and it's very easy on your gut. What people don't realize is brown rice, which actually still has kind of like the hull, the shell around it, is still similar carbohydrate with white rice, but it wreaks havoc on your digestive system. It cuts open technically in the inside of your gut, which would kind of get leaky gut syndrome with that, and you don't absorb any of it. Let me rephrase that. You don't absorb additional nutrients when that is wreaking havoc on your gut. So what people don't realize is you can have a lot of vitamins and technically minerals in your system, and when you eat brown rice, it actually pulls away from that because it has to repair the damage that it has done to your gut to it. So avoid brown rice. I know you've been told it's been healthier by the grain community and all that. Again, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because the next video I do is literally probably going to be 2 hours long because I'm going to thoroughly break this down so you can get a true understanding. Right now, I'm just giving you a snapshot. But I would pick white rice over brown rice. Hands down, you just need to be cautious with it. You don't want to eat a ton of it. It's a great side. You want to have a half a cup or so is a good go-to. You don't want massive piles of it. But other than that, white rice is a very easy, digestible food that doesn't strip your nutrients like the brown rice does. Next, we'll get into nuts here. There's only 2 nuts that I really will recommend, I think, and I'll get into it. You want to avoid peanuts. You want to avoid peanut butter, which I absolutely love peanut butter, but I don't eat it. I go to macadamia nuts and Brazil nuts. So there's a two for one there. Macadamia nuts have a very good high quality fat profile with very low carbohydrates. So they're good for the carbohydrates. People don't realize there's a lot of carbs that sneak in with a little bit of fiber, which isn't bad with nuts. The problem with nuts is they're very calorically dense. Similar to brown rice, I don't recommend almonds because of that shelling that is on them. It's the same concept as the brown rice. Again, almonds aren't terrible, but I think there's better things for you. And I think macadamia nuts are, as well as Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts kind of that large looking nut that people usually throw out when they get a mix of nuts. It has a ton of selenium in it, and that is spit this out. That is a true mineral that our body needs that we can't get a lot of places. So that's why Brazil nuts are on there, and it's a good quick go-to. You just need to be careful with those because they are calorically dense, meaning they hold a good amount of fat, which is why you need to measure those out. I'm not for measuring food the rest of your life, but I think if you stay within this list, you really don't need to measure too much. But you need to be cautious with those because the calories will add up fast. Also, you want to make sure these are raw. Macadamia nuts are raw or the Brazil nuts are raw. And the reason why is 99% of macadamia nuts or Brazil nuts or any other nut to be that fact has been coated with typically like cotton seed oil. They do a lot of soy, a lot of palm oil will be thrown on them, and then they're roasted because that oil brings the temperature up quicker, gives it a nice crisp, tasty feel to it, but we want to stay away from those because those are the unhealthier fats. So raw macadamia nuts or Brazil nuts. Then raw yogurt, which this one is controversial, similar to the beef. Raw yogurt, which you cannot find in Schnucks or Dierbergs or Walmart. Now, I have a link to an actual farm that is out of Sedalia that actually comes to St. Louis once a week and does a drop-off where I get raw, unpastured dairy. And again, I don't have time to go down the rabbit hole of why I think that is so much healthier than your traditional dairy. People are like, oh, if it's not pasteurized, it can be unhealthy. You could get really sick from it. No, that was from something else. And I'm not going to get down it, but raw keeps the enzymes fresher. There's a lot of antihistamines in it that is phenomenal for your immune system, and it's good quality proteins and fats that come along with dairy. Now, again, I'm isolating yogurt, okay? And the reason yogurt is because it has that that probiotic in it, which is very, very good for your gut. The healthier our gut is, guys, the healthier we are. That's why I'm cautious with what the foods I eat. I don't want it distressing our gut. We'll later on share that link where you can get that if you're interested. I also think raw milk is fantastic and raw cheese is, but again, I would put that on honorable mention because I think I have a half a cup of raw yogurt every single day. Next is honey, okay? I'm not a huge fan of a ton of honey because, again, it's sugar. Our body's still going to react to it like sugar, even though it's natural, even though it's raw. But if we are to use any kind of sweetener or sugar, I want it to be honey. The body responds better to it. There are times when a decent amount of sugar works well with the body. Post-workout, closer to evening, we need sugars within the body. So raw honey is the best way to do that. I don't get honey off the shelf. There's actually a lady local in Oakville that I could share her information as well, who will sit there and pour it the day of out of the tap and sell it to you. If you get it off of the shelf, you want to make sure it says raw, unfiltered honey, because what people don't realize is a lot of these companies sit there and cut half of their honey with high fructose corn syrup, and they caramel color it and dump it in there, and they sell it off as honey all the time. So we want to avoid that. And then the last food on my list is collagen/bone broth. Okay, now bone broth carries the collagen protein in it. As you guys know, we have the collagen supplement as well. Either or is great. Typically, people aren't going to take the time to heat up a cup or go buy bone broth, heat it up, and then drink it. That's why I recommend the flavorless collagen. You can throw it in anything. But what people don't realize is we quit producing collagen, or we slow down producing collagen after the age of about 25. It decreases. Part of the human growth hormone is as well. And because of that, we lose the elasticity in our skin, our ligaments, our joints, our cartilage, our bones use collagen, and we don't get that within the diet unless you have a collagen supplement or drinking bone broth. So I find that one to be absolutely crucial because it keeps our joints in good health and your hair, skin, and nails as well, which is important. And I know a lot of people prefer that. A lot of people can tell you within 3 to 4 weeks of consistently using collagen, they notice their hair, skin, and nails are getting stronger and healthier and look better. It does the same thing to your insides. It does the same thing again to the cartilage in your knees, the ligaments, the additional tissue around the bone. It truly helps. So that is crucial as a supplement, or again, something daily that should be in your routine. So that's all the foods that I go with, again, to make a staple. You can sit there and create all kinds of meals just using those foods and keep it absolutely simple and easy. And again, now these aren't the only foods. There's more healthy foods out there. You can still eat chicken. You can still eat pork. You can still have, other dairy. But again, I think these should be the foundations of what we eat, and that's what I make myself. Now, a couple foods that I want to go over with that are labeled as health foods that I want you guys to avoid. It may surprise you a little bit, but number one on my list is kale. Kale is incredibly, what people don't realize, there's a lot of nutrients in kale. Okay, it looks good on paper. But there's a lot of anti-nutrient defense chemicals in kale because it doesn't want to be eaten. Our body really can't even break down the portions of that kale because they're so dense. And then the same thing is kind of like that brown rice setup. It wreaks havoc on our gut. If I were to eat it, I would thoroughly cook it down, steam it, sear it. I mean, really cook it. But again, I just avoid to keep it all out of my diet because I don't even think it tastes good anyway. But a lot of people, again, go to kale because there for a while they push about how many vitamins and minerals in it. Yes, there are vitamins and minerals in it, but your body can't even absorb them and use them because it's causing so much distress on your system. So that's the number one health food I would avoid. The next one is an almond milk. Okay, an almond milk or any actual milk substitutes to begin with, and here's why. If almond milk was true almond milk, it wouldn't be terrible. But what these companies do, one, it's not very nutrient dense. You're not getting any nutrient with this. So again, I want my food to be nutrient dense. Now, if you use it as like a milk substitute because you want to make a shake and you like it that it's a little bit thicker, it's okay here and there. But other than that, you're not getting any nutrients from a true almond milk because all of it is they grind up some almonds, they filter water over the top of it, and then they fill that with emulsifiers and certain things to make it coagulate and make it thicker, to give you that milk consistency. So you actually get more chemical product because of the consistency of it than you do at the actual almonds. And the almonds that they use, and this goes for oats, this goes for soy, this goes for all of it, are what they call the bottom of the barrel. So companies don't want to waste anything. So what they do is they put the nice, pretty almonds out on the shelves for you to buy in packages, and then the ones that are molded, don't look as well, they're at the bottom of the barrel. I'm talking. It's been tested. There's a ton of mold in almond milk because they've used moldy, almonds that they cannot put on the shelf, grind them up, run water over them, and then that's what they get the consistency of it. They do the same again with oats. They do the same with soy. They do the same with cashews. All milk substitutes do the same concept, and it's incredibly overpriced for glorified water because it's 95% water, and the rest of it is just some kind of consistency and emulsifier to make it hold that milk consistency. So I would stay away from those. Okay. Next is soy. Anything with soy, soy oil, soy by itself. Soy wreaks havoc on our testosterone, on our estrogen, on our overall hormones throughout the body. As male and females, we need to have both testosterone and estrogen to balance each other out. Just male and females are in different ratios. Soy wreaks havoc on that. Not only that, soy is the most genetically modified food in the planet. It has been manipulated so much that our body, again, it causes more damage than it causes good. So again, I stay away from it. People like it because it's technically high in protein, but again, that's on paper. It doesn't carry the amino acid structure that a beef would or a whey protein shake would. So it really doesn't build muscle as efficiently as something else. You'd have to, I'm making this up, but for instance, you'd have to have like 60 grams of soy protein to even get close to qualifying to like 15 grams of beef protein. Okay. It's not the exact numbers, but I hope that makes sense. Of like you have to consume way more than you would of the other, and then you're going to get all those negative side effects that come with it. So again, that's why I avoid soy. Kind of talked with it briefly, but vegetable oil, guys, is terrible for you. It's been highly processed. It's been heated up. It's been manipulated. It's been dyed. I mean, the list goes on forever, and they pump this into all of our processed foods because the shelf life lasts forever. We shouldn't be eating something with a crazy shelf life, guys. Stuff should go bad because it's real and it's nutrient dense. And guess what? Those things that come in, bacteria to eat this stuff, want actual nutrients. They don't want garbage. That's why you'll see those pictures of like McDonald's that is 10 years old that doesn't have any mold on it because there's no true nutritional value on it. Mold's smart. It knows what it wants. That's why berries mold so quick. I just thought, yeah, so something to think about. I got two more on here for you, and these are kind of both go together. I believe grains are absolutely awful for you. The same concept as I talked about with that brown rice. Grains wreak havoc on your system, whether it's whole wheat, whether it's white bread. Grains are very tough. They do the same thing. They do tears to our gut, which open up our gut and allow other bacteria in and out. It can cause a lot of damage on the system. It's high in carbohydrates, which shoot our insulin up very fast, shoot our blood sugars up very fast, and then we crash down. So again, I'm not a fan of any grains at all. I'm not a fan of oats. I'm not a fan of wheat. Quinoa is a different story. That's technically a seed. I think that's okay. That may be on quinoa, maybe on honorable mention. That's not a grain, so those are okay. But again, grains and overall, I would stay away from. And then that takes me into keto/low carb breads. And this is my last one on the list. These are not healthy. They cause a ton of issues with the gut because they're so dense. Well, people, they load them up with fiber to keep them dense, but try to give them that bread consistency, and then they use net carbs as their quote. And again, it's full of like psyllium husk. Wheat gluten is poured into those things, again, to give it that consistency without actually using the higher amount of carbohydrate of the grain to make the bread. And again, they're just terrible on your system. They're typically higher carbohydrate in general. It's just they don't label it as higher carbohydrate because they don't count the fiber. Well, it's too much fiber for your body to handle. Your body needs some fiber, yes, but if you're consistently eating these keto breads or these wraps, it's too much fiber for your system to have it. And again, it causes all that gut distress, and your gut doesn't work like it should, and then everything else goes crazy. So those are the things you want to avoid. Again, I know I've gone over a lot quick. I didn't get very thorough with all these, which are our next video that will kind of host the pathway to our next challenge. Will be a very, very thorough video of this, but hopefully this gives you an understanding and you feel a little more comfortable with it, and maybe you can make these, at least some of them, a staple within your diet and make you just feel a little bit better. Just for instance, I only eat from that list of foods, the top 15. This entire challenge, all I did, and I had a week that I didn't do great on tracking wise. Now I tracked all my food, but I had one week where I kind of fell off. I probably ate more than I should have, but I stayed within these foods and the scale didn't move at all. I may have had more, I may have had less some days. I didn't measure it all, but they all came from this whole source, and I didn't lose any ground. I didn't gain any ground. I just kind of stayed where I was, which is ideally what we want in life. We don't need to be measuring our food all the time. We need to go in spurts because sometimes we need to slap on a hand or we need to wake up to realize we're overeating. So again, I believe in spurts of measuring and keeping ourselves accountable. But overall, as long as I eat within these foods, if I go out to eat, I can have a steak and a sweet potato anywhere I go, or I can have chicken and asparagus anywhere I go. I can still eat out and do all these different things. Actually, chicken's on the honorable mention list. It's not the core group, but again, I eat beef everywhere I go anyway. But I can do that stuff and still stay on track and not lose a ton of ground and backtrack as long as I'm staying away from that processed food and all the additional junk. So I know that was quick. I hope it helps some of you. Again, always within passing, ask questions. I will, again, next challenge, have a much thorough video of this that you will actually get to start with. That will give you a good foundation that will come with a high, low, and medium chart of like foods to stay within. And I think you'll notice a huge difference on that. So again, let me know if you got any questions, but I hope this was overall good and it helps you guys.